Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and welcome to the Flight Sim Studio Boeing 727-200. That feels strange to say. Freighter. And we are going to fly this one from Brussels over to Stuttgart, which is going to be a nice 50-minute flight where we can explore some of the capabilities of this aircraft. Now this is not going to be a tutorial, so we are certainly going to be missing a few steps every here and there, since it is a pretty complex aircraft. And obviously I'm not type rated on a 727, but I have to say it feels somewhat familiar coming from the 737, but then again everything's just a little bit older and in some cases a bit more complex, especially the flight engineer station, but we're going to have a more detailed look on that in this video. Now, prefacing it, I do have to admit that I had a little difficulty with the manual every now and then, because sometimes switches are not called the way they are called on the panel and stuff like that, which can make it a little bit hard to actually find some stuff. But we'll do our best to get it going, and with all of that, I'd say let's board the aircraft, and we are going to get our showdown on the road over here. So, this is it, the Boeing 727 cockpit. Now, things might look a little bit strange here at first, but believe me, it's not all that complicated of an aircraft, so we are definitely gonna get there. Don't worry about that, my friends. Okay, so all the good stuff out of the way, I'd say we just jump in and we are just going to go flying. So we are going to actually not start this one on the captain's seat, even though this is what it looks like, and I do really believe the panel looks wonderful over here. Flight Sim Studios have really improved themselves coming from the Embraer, and the 727 is really on the way to become one of my favorite steam gauge airliners at the moment. But alright, of course it still has a couple of issues. It's just been released after all, but it is in a much better shape than the Embraer, that much I can already say. Okay, so we do not have an electronic flight back in here. It would be somewhat inappropriate, would it, to fit an EFB into something as wonderful as this. So what we do have is that clipboard down here that you can use that has a lot of EFB functions into it. So for example, over here you can control things like the doors, like the ground power unit, which we can connect over here. You can change the panel states, decide from which seat you want to fly, like we've got left seat or we've got the right seat. A feature that I've only seen on Flight Sim Studio aircraft, by the way. Or for example, you can either fit an auto throttle over here, or you can remove that. Now, there were auto throttles, like that one, available in here for the 727, but let's fly without one. I kind of like to do the thrust manually over here, because it works really well. So we're going to leave the auto throttle out. We also have a lot of different navigation equipment options. For example, we've got the GNS 530, we got the CEVA INS, or we can fit a GTN XI if we really want to. But we're going to use the CEVA INS today, and I will do a separate tutorial here on how to navigate on that thing, so you can look forward to that already. Likewise, we can change the units between Imperial and Metric. Now, while I personally love to use metric on it, I am going to use Imperial here, because a lot of the performance charts for the aircraft are actually in Imperial units. Okay, so on the next page then, which is the pre-flight page, we can, for example, download our SimBrief flight plan, and you can see that it's automatically imported my flight over here and my fuel data and all that good stuff. Now, we can either go ahead and do a real-time boarding or refueling over here, or we can go ahead and just make it an instant. So for example, for the payload, I am going to make this one instant here, and for the fuel, I could make it a real-time loading over here. Also included in the aircraft is a GSX profile, which we can sure enough use, and it comes with the aircraft by default. You don't need to do anything. The moment you install it, you will have that GSX profile available to you. Okay, so just a quick thing here. As you can see, it's pumping out fuel at the moment because the standard panel state had more than we actually needed, so for that reason I'm just gonna fast forward this to finish the refueling. Okay. So that good stuff is out of the way. Then I suppose we are just going to open some doors here. Open the forward entry, upper cargo, forward and aft cargo. And while that stuff is going on, let's go ahead and request a GSX boarding over here, which, well, I suppose should be called loading over here. Oh wow, you're too late for your scheduled departure. Try another time. For a real GSX, I just set my simulator time a little bit later so that it doesn't get too dark. Now it denies me services. Okay, well, no further comments on that. Alright, anyway, then we gotta live without GSX. Wonderful how that program works. So we are going to start this one with a little walk around of the aircraft. And we start right up here. On the very front. And, well, we are going to take a closer look at the cargo hold later on. So, for now, let's start the aircraft right up here. So, standard walk around begins at the beginning of the plane. We've got the tap probe here. We've got the pitot probes over here. And, well, this looks really like my standard Boeing 737. Well, it is the same airframe after all. So, AOA vane on this side and the first officers and standby pitot probes here. Now, the external power hook is kind of interestingly floating in the air over here. No further comment on that. Well, let's go ahead and have a look at the nose wheel assembly. So that's the level of detail we get here with the Boeing 727. In my opinion, absolutely sufficient, seeing that you, well, kind of never get down there in an aircraft as low as this. Alright, so interesting enough that they painted the static port here. That's something I've never seen done on an airliner. Okay, so that's what our lower cargo compartment looks like. Typical Boeing stuff. And then getting on to the wings. So we've got our landing and runway turn-off lights over here. We have our leading edge flaps hanging down at the moment. And that is what it looks like on the inside. So obviously they are hanging down because we don't have hydraulics currently applied. The airplane also has some wingtip fences fitted. Fancy stuff. Learned about those things in ATPL theory. They are basically for improved flow across the wing. But newer aircraft basically don't feature those anymore. But back in the day when the 727 was manufactured and developed, those were actually quite common things. So having a look at the wing then, and at our lights, and then we can move on along the aft part of our wing. We have the static wick dischargers here and the white navigation light, and we also have our fuel dump valves in here. Alright then, moving a little bit further forward, we get to the main wheel assembly, and this is what it looks like. Again, kinda similar to the 737, just the lower wing over here is a little bit difficult to walk underneath. And, well, this is what it looks like. Again, for something that's as shielded and as hidden as the gear is in the 727, I do believe they put a fine level of detail into here. Alright then, quick look into the aft cargo holds. And that's what it is. Okay, so getting on to the aft part of our plane, and over here we have a couple interesting things. So, first of all, of course, our JT8D engines, which we'll talk about a little bit more in flight. And we also have a tail skid in this aircraft, which is optional equipment as far as I could see. Alright then, coming on to the tailplane, we have the elevator fuel and computer probes up here. And moving along our tailplane, we obviously do have the engine outlet for engine number 3 in here. And then getting to the front, on the other side it should be the very same. So overall, what's my first impression on the model then? Before recording this video, I did fly 5 complete flights in the 727 to get myself a little bit acquainted with it. Because anything else would just feel unfair. It is such a complex aircraft that really had to prepare myself. That's also the reason why you guys didn't get those videos on the very first release of the plane, but a little bit later. But my first impression on the aircraft is really that they've done a pretty good job modeling. The level of detail could be a little bit higher on the external model, but then again, it does come with a pretty good performance on my computer, so they did the right trade-offs. If you view it from any reasonable distance, like we do right now, then the level of detail looks absolutely perfect, and I do just like those reflections on the model over here. You can get to see those even better when we fly in dusk or dawn conditions. Just, you gotta do that. You gotta treat yourself to that. Okay then, getting back into the aircraft itself, let's go ahead and go over to the flight engineer station, and we are going to start preparing ourselves over there. So, I am going to do things kinda out of the manual over here, even though I have to say that occasionally, as I mentioned, there are parts of the manual where you have reference to switches that just don't appear to exist in this flight deck, or maybe are just called different in the manual than they are in the flight deck, and for that reason are rather hard to find. But nonetheless, we will get there. So we're going to start with a battery over here, which we're going to turn on, and you can see that external power is connected, and we are going to use it. Now, something I noticed on the aircraft is that with some switches, especially those switches that have multiple waves, the mouse doesn't change its form when you hold them over it. That's why I initially wrote an email to Martin from Flight Sim Studios and told him like, hey, you don't seem to have some click spots working. And he was like, no, just try it. Just click and drag or use your mouse wheel on them and they will work. And sure enough, he was right. So let's go ahead and turn that external power on up here. Alright, so external power is working. Let's go ahead and start up the APU nonetheless though. So we start with a fire test. And then we are going to reset that thing and start it up. Now, contrary to most airliners that we are used to, the APU seems to be located close to the flight deck compartment in the Boeing 727. So you can really hear it start up in the background. Pay some attention to that. Okay, so the APU is running, the APU generator off bus light is come on. Let's go ahead and close that generator relay. And with that, the APU generator is available for us as well now. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch the essential power selector over to the APU. And with the APU running, we can go ahead and use it for air conditioning as well. So we're gonna turn on all the bleed air switches and the pack switches as well. Alright, so that's the packs now operating, so let's go ahead and turn on the radio masters. I really had to search for those, but here they are. Okay, radio masters are on, park and brake is set, and the most important thing of all, we are going to turn on the galley power over here so that we can make our coffees. Okay, then we can continue down here, and we do have hydraulic quantity available as we need it. We're going to turn on one of the system B pumps. Yesterday I used elect pump 1, so today we're going to use elect pump 2. The hydraulic system is pressurizing. Oil quantity system test. Make sure that the gauges move as they are supposed to. And then we check out the oxygen quantities up here, and they're looking good as well. Alright, so far so good. The cabin pressure control panel may look a little similar for those of you familiar with the 737 NG, even though the NG already had some more advanced panel. Nonetheless, for now we just gotta make sure that it is indeed in the ground mode. And finally, ensure that both cooling doors, those are the ones up here, are fully open. So that does take a little while up here to actually happen. And you somewhat gotta hold the switches there. Okay, here we go. Cooling doors are fully open. Well, then we continue along the back side of our cockpit. Circuit breakers are checked and all in. Fuel dump panel, switches are all down, and we test the lights, looking good. Fire detection, so loops A and B are selected over here, and then we can do the fire test up here. And that is looking good. Bell cutout switch is working as well, perfect. Okay, so that stuff's looking good. Door annunciator panel down here is checked, and the leading edge flaps light are tested, and the lights down here are tested as well. Okay, and with that we are basically done back here for now, so let's move up to the captain's station. Now, you can see the lights are on by default. You've got a lot of those light controls up here, for example. Over here we can turn them back off again. I'm not 100% sure yet which light setting I like the most. For now, let's just switch them off over here. The only problem I have with switching those lights off is that the DME becomes rather difficult to read, but we'll have a look into that in a moment. Let's just go ahead and turn them all off. Would be really nice if you could somehow operate them all at the same time, by the way. Maybe that's just a little suggestion there for the future. Also, the nav lights can come on already. But if you're just looking at the panel like this, this would be my normal flight configuration. You can see that the DME up here is rather difficult to read for DME number 1. Now, the offside DME really well, but this one is rather hard to read without any lights on. So we'll just keep it like that for now, but we will look into that again in the future. Alright, flight test, looking good, all the bulbs are working, thank you, and the other one is as well. Okay, so from now on we basically just go over the entire panel. I know that I've simplified a bit of stuff over here for myself, so for example that anti-skid should remain off as far as I'm aware, but I haven't quite understood why yet. So would be nice if the manual could include a couple of extra explanations there as to why some things are done the way they are. Also kinda strange looking at first here is that the transponder is located on the overhead panel. But back in the day that's basically what it used to be like. Okay, window heat test is looking good. Then we can test the engine anti-ice. And all operating correctly. And a quick test of the pitot heat system, or rather the probe heat system as well, looking good. Okay then, getting down to the main panel, what do we have down here? Well, a lot of gauges. Basically we've got our clock over here, speed indicator, we have, well, the most basic form of an RMI over there. God darn, I actually forgot the real name of that. Well, you don't see these gauges that often anymore. An RMI, as far as I'm aware, should have a DME indication as well, but let's not dwell over that. Alright, altimeter, and you not only have your QNH over here, but you can also set your self a little buck as a reminder there, which I have to admit I do really like, even though I keep confusing the two switches. Like on the left side you change the QNH, on the right side you change that little buck that you have over there, so that's something that I still have to get used to somewhat. But okay, so far so good. So, in terms of the weather, Brussels currently has a QNH of 1012, so let's go ahead and pre-select that. And then I'm also going to set that little buck to the field elevation. Ready altimeter set, standby, ADI, we can go ahead and align that one, looking good. And the QNH down here, 1012, with the buck set to the field elevation. Initial climb is going to be most likely flight level 60 here in Brussels. And engine instruments checked. Over here everything's checked, and then we just gotta set the FO altimeter, which again is gonna be 1012 as well. Here we go. Okay, excellent. Then we can get down here to our INS. So that one's gonna go into align. It'll take a couple of minutes until it's finished the alignment process. The only thing we gotta give it now already is our actual position. And finding out your position is rather easy. So you have the Navigraph chart options down here, which we can use. So we are in Brussels. And now, which stand are we on? 963. So let's go to the taxi chart tab. Go down quite a bit, and down here we should somewhere have our parking stand coordinates. Here we go. So 963 is just over here. So north 5054.2. So let's go to position, north, and I just set 5054.2, 5054.2, insert, and our east position is 427.5. 427.5. Okay, insert, and with that our alignment can commence. Let's go over to the status indicator. Over here you can see the alignment status. 9 indicates that it is still in progress. Alright, next up we continue further down. That's our autopilot panel. We can't pre-select anything over here, so don't worry with that. Our radios are going to go into 1 to 2.8 and 1 to 1.5. Here we go, and then we can next set up our nav radios, but I'm just going to skip over those until we do our SID preparation. So the trims are both at 0, and with that our flight deck inspection is basically complete. Okay, so next let's go ahead and set up for our route. So we basically don't need this anymore, but much rather we can use the airport chart, and that's a little bug I found. If you click too close to the middle of the clipboard over here, then it just stows it away, but unfortunately that sometimes is right on those charts here. So you've got to click to the right of it, and then you can actually go ahead and load those things up. Alright, so we have our taxi chart, now we also need our SID. And we can grab that over here. Unfortunately, something I didn't notice yet is the ability to view your SimBrief OFP in here. That would be really, really neat, especially if you could put it down here so that you could type it directly into the INS. By the way, you can see the green ready light has come on, so the alignment process is complete. So we can switch the selector to the nav position. You can see ready goes out, and 4 down here indicates that 0 down here indicates that the alignment process is finished. 4 indicates that a DME update can be made. Alright, so we're going to type our route in a few moments. For now, let's continue with our flight. And our departure today is going to be via the Sopok, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Sopok 3 Golf. So let's go ahead and find that chart first. Would be nice if you had some search function here, but I suppose you didn't have that back in the day. Much rather you had your large Jefferson folder, and from there you could then start digging out your charts as you needed them. Okay, so Sopok 3 Golf. Here it is. Likewise, it would be very nice if you had the ability to take those charts out of here, like simulating getting them out of the Jefferson folder, and then either clip them to the chart clipboard over here, put them down over here, or just put them to the actual chart clip on your window. Like, that's the original use of this thing, even though today nobody uses it for that anymore. But it would be really nice if they could enhance that a little bit. But then again, this is just the first version of the plane, so I'm sure things like that are going to come. Okay, so Sopok 3 Golf is going to be straight ahead to 1700, left turn to Holdenberg VOR, outbound on 130, 5.1 miles to Bravo Romeo 102, and thereafter we'll have to use ANAV towards Bullocks, flight level 170, and then on towards Sopok above flight level 240. So this procedure is to be used by single, 2 and 3 engine aircraft during daylight hours basically, which we do have. Max 250 or clean speed weighted airbus higher below 100. Maybe used for 4-engine aircraft. Okay, not our problem. Alright, so initial climb, flight level 60, and that is selected up here. And then our route, going to lead us straight out to 1700, left to Holdenberg, 17.55. So let's go ahead and tune that active in the VOR, 1755. And in the lack of anything else required on the NAV2 radio, I'm going to tune it there as well. Again, makes it nicer with the DME down here. Okay, we can basically pre-select our course, even though there is no actual course known, since we are just going to climb to 1700 and then directly into here. So I'm just going to pre-select it to, well, this points in about the 130 direction, doesn't it? So let's go ahead and dial that in. Might have been a bit fast here. So 130, like that. Again, a bit hard to read the window up here without the lights on, but then again, I believe the cockpit looks a tad nicer with the lights off, doesn't it? Alright, and thereafter 130 outbound. Well, can pre-select that on the FO side, but it's really not going to matter too much, since we fly from the captain's side. Alright, that's 130 selected. Okay, so that much for our basic nav setup. Now we got to think about when do we need to change over to RNAV procedures, and I'd say we can figure out Bravo Romeo 102 manually over here. It's 1305.1 miles from Holdenberg. Well, technically due to the slant range error, not exactly 5.1, but it's an RMP1 departure, that means we can deviate by 1 mile, so that's good enough. So the next one we need after this is going to be bullocks. And this one we have to get right from our flight plan. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to give you a little view of my sim brief plan up here. So if we have a look at that, this is what it looks like. And down here on the briefing preview, if we now scroll down to the nav log, you can see we can get our GPS coordinates for the route over here. Now, if you have a different sit in here than you have in your, or than you actually plan to fly, you are kind of gonna have a problem, since Jefferson charts don't list coordinates for waypoints anymore. I suppose you could somewhat just get it over here, like click on that waypoint. Well, actually not even that anymore. So, well, we're gonna use them out of here. So, for bullocks, for example, we have 5035.6 north and 00515.1 east, and I'm gonna pull this up to my iPad now in order to type all those coordinates into the INS flight plan. So just in case you're wondering where I'm getting my stuff from, well, that's where I'm getting it from. So position number 1, and then we can start. So we have bullocks, which, as I mentioned, is at 5035.6, 50356, and then we have an east coordinate of 5151, like that, insert. Okay, waypoint number 2 is going to be Sopak, 5015.2, and the east coordinate is going to be 5464. Alright, and on to waypoint number 3, and that's going to be Itano, 5010.9, insert that, and the east coordinate 6115, insert. So the way this works is basically you first define if you want a north or a south coordinate on the left field. So I want a north coordinate here, enter that, and then I have 5012.6, 50126, press insert, and now we can enter the right. I want an east coordinate, and that's going to be 6386. Insert that one as well, and like that we just gotta type basically the entire route over here. So next up is gonna be Ropov on number 5, and that is gonna become 5013.3, and the east coordinate for that is gonna be 650.9. Enter. Waypoint number 6, gonna be 5011.8. And the east coordinate 719.7. Number 7, 5004.4. And the east coordinate 7544. Number 8, it's going to be 5002.9. And the east coordinate 8047. And lastly, number 9, 49520, and the east coordinate 8288. Okay, and that's all we can enter. We can only enter 9 waypoints, so let's go ahead and display the distance and time in here, and we can pre-select this to waypoint 1, so that by the time we've passed those waypoints, we can go ahead and enter more of them. Now, something I can really, and I mean really recommend you to do is to either print out the flight plan, or, thinking of the environment, just to grab a flight plan or a PDF editor. For example, I'm using Goodreader on my personal iPad. I'm using that one for over 10 years now. And then just write the numbers of the waypoints that you've just entered next to the waypoints on the flight plan, so that you can easily identify which number corresponds to which waypoint. And that's something I can really, 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 really recommend you to do there. So that's basically our waypoint entry complete there. Makes life a lot easier to do that. That way you know immediately which waypoint you have, and that way you can navigate easily. If you're wondering, down here we can see it's navigating from waypoint 0 to waypoint 1. 0 is always the present position, so right now, track 218, no, distance 218, that doesn't look right. Well, once we're in the air, that stuff is gonna change. Nonetheless, let me quickly cross-check those coordinates over here, just to be on the safe side. So 50356 is correct, and the east coordinate is 5151. Yeah, that is correct. And the present position, I think I've misaligned it. Yeah, I think I misaligned it. Let's just cross-check the chart one more time. So, going down here, parking stand coordinates. And we're on 965, yeah, 4275. I typed 0275. Too bad. So we shut the system off again. And we gotta do that stuff again. So that's what you get when you don't cross-check it carefully. The result of this would have been an incorrect position, and that would have pulled through for the entire flight. So, yep, it was a good idea we did this check. Alright, so let's go ahead and insert those coordinates again. So, 963 is our stand, 5054.2. And now the east coordinate is gonna be 4275. So, 4275. Insert. Right. Of course it did not retain our waypoints. Well, that's what I get for having fast fingers. So 50356. Going into here, and the east coordinate then 5151. Waypoint number 2, 50152. At least we can now go over this in the quick way. So 5464. As I don't have to explain it again. So 50109. And the east coordinate 6115. Number 4, 50126. And the east coordinate there, 6386. And I'll tell you what, I'm just going to leave those couple of waypoints in here. Just going to leave it like that for now. Now, strangely enough, the distance over here, oh well, let's put it to nav. Right, that looks better, 35 miles. That seems roundabout correct, so I'm happy with that now. We'll have to insert the rest of the coordinates in flight, but I think that is acceptable in order not to cause any additional delay over here. Alright, so with that, our flight deck setup is basically completed from our side in the front over here. Now, we gotta go to the back on the flight engineer station once again, and in here, we once again have a little bit of work to do. So, starting up here, wing anyeyes test is done, overheat test is done, the start valve lights work, overheat lights work, pack trip switch can remain in cutout for now, oxygen system normal, going up here and further down, all the switches here are down on in, that's all set. Getting down to the fuel pumps, we're gonna turn on one per station. Close the thrust feeds on the outer engines and make sure that the general engine feeds are open. Getting down to our radio panel, we can set that up. Fuel heat panel is all looking good. Hydraulic system A, engine pumps can come on. Ground interconnectors down, fluid shutoffs guarded. Just a quick check that both hydraulic system are working, hydraulics are checked, and then getting up here we can do the engine vibration test. Needle's got to go up between 3.5 to 4.5. And they do. Alright, and then we can get up to our pressurization panel. Now that one's sometimes behaving a bit strange for me, as the system test just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So I'm just going to skip the system test over here. Cruising in 24,000, so we're looking at a cabin altitude of about... what's that, 1,400 feet, I believe? So let's go ahead and set that into here. Alright, so the modes are all working. The only thing that doesn't work for me is the check of the system, but doesn't matter, we're just going to keep it over here, and that's it. I mean, if I do go into check over here, the outflow valve closes, those two come on, but there should be some stuff to be able to be done in the auto mode as well. Unfortunately, that just doesn't cut it for me. Alright, up here everything is set, and we can turn on the gasper fan and the cargo heat outflow to normal. Well, and that's this part of the checks complete, so let's go ahead and put that chart away for a second. We'll need the airport chart here again. Here we go. And then we can pull out the checklist and do our before start checklist. So, flight attendant briefing complete, landing gear, lever and lights down and checked, brakes parked, start levers off, flight instruments checked, altimeters and clocks, QNH 1012 reading 140, clocks checked. Checked brake pressures, checked, radar and transponder standby, exterior lights checked, emergency exit lights armed, seatbelts and no smoking signs on, window heat on, compass is slaved and magnetic, radios on and checked, departure briefing to go, logbook checked. And with that, our pre-flight items here are complete. I do believe... well, actually, I'm not 100% sure about the items below the box. If you guys know, put it in the comments. I couldn't find it in the manual. Okay, and then we can go over to the engineer station, and he's got a couple of things to do there as well. So, for the engineer, battery on, fuel quantity. What do we have then? We're on 6,000, a bit more than that, 6.3 I'd say, times 3. So we're looking at around about 18,000 pounds, and that corresponds with our flight plan indeed. Okay, so fuel quantity checked, boost pumps, 1 on each tank, transfer valves, number 2 only is open. Okay, B pumps checked, 1 on, hydraulic and engine oil quantity checked, bleed valves open, APU panel checked, circuit breakers checked, ACARs. Well, we don't have that in this plane. Alright, and that's the before start checklist complete. So with all of that good stuff out of the way, let's put that checklist away again for a second. And let's go ahead and determine our takeoff data. So for the takeoff data, we got a couple of tables, and I'm just going to show you in the manual. Of course, there is a takeoff calculator, just so that you don't get a heart attack right now. There's a takeoff calculator in here as well. We could use that, but let's do that stuff ourselves. Makes things a bit more interesting, if you ask me. So we do need our current gross weight, and that's 155.5. And then we can go into the product manual, and over here, if you go down, you will find performance, tables and charts. And down here you got a lot of different charts. Now what we need is going to be, first of all, the normal takeoff thrust. And now we take our elevation and our temperature. And to find those, again, elevation, simply read it from the altimeter. And the temperature gauge you have up here, so we're looking at about 16 degrees centigrade right now. So going back into this, we're at sea level, we're at about 16 degrees, so that's just about between the 15 mark and the 20 mark in here. So that's easily enough EPR of 2.0 on the pod engine and 2.02 on the center engine. So slightly different EPRs per the 3 engines fitted. So 2.0 on the outers and 2.2 on the inner engine. So we can go ahead and pre-select that up here on the EPR box. Takes a small while to dial in, but here we go. 2.0, the center engine 2.02. And the number 3 engine again gonna go on to 2.0. Alright, so that's our takeoff thrust now determined. Next up we're going to go into the manual once again, and we're gonna go down to get our takeoff speeds, and here they are, takeoff speeds. Now we are located at an elevation between 1000 and minus 1000. The temperature is 38 degrees or cooler. We are going to do a flap 15 takeoff, and we're at a gross weight of 155. So let's take the 160 speeds, or we can also interpolate that. So we're around about right in the middle here. So let's take V1 130 and V2 145. So 130, 145. Initial pitch 15 degrees. Okay, gonna go and dial that stuff in. So, several airspeed bucks that we have over here. We're going to start with the one at 130. The next one is going to go to 145. And the clean speed is going to be about 210. I'm going to set that one as well. And finally, our climb speed target. Or we could also use this one for V2 plus 10, for example. Let's do that. It's going right up here. Alright, and that's our buck setup complete. Now, the only thing I would love to set now is the runway heading. So let's go for 250, which is here. And that should be our initial climb setup complete. Now, the only thing that we gotta prepare for now is going to be our climb thrust. So let's go up again a little bit, and maximum climb thrust for the buck sheet. I suppose that's the one we are going to take. So we are looking at an elevation of about, well, we're going to set climb thrust once we are in 3000 AGL. The temperature is, well, let's take plus 15, so looking at 1.82 on the pod engine and 1.86 on the center engine. So pod means the engines in the pods located like outside the aircraft. While center, well, is kind of obvious, isn't it? So we're looking at 1.82, 1.86. Just gotta write that one down somewhere so that we have it readily available for our climb thrust setting. Okay, and that is our takeoff performance basically done. So let's see, we're on the APU generator already. Let's go ahead and order GSX for our pushback. So prepare position for pushback and departure. Handling Belgium airport service is fine enough for me. Okay. So the doors should be getting closed right now. Let's just see up here. Close the upper cargo, close the forward entry. Cones can go, chocks can go. Stand by for ground power. APU generator is working, looks good. External power switch is off. Okay, remove ground power as well. Here we go. Okay, and that's all this good stuff done. The only thing I gotta take from the takeoff page here is our trim setting, 5.25. So, down here. And there we go, 5.25 is set. Alright, so with that we should be more than good to go. Ground flight deck, go ahead. So, please confirm all doors and hatches are closed, ground equipment is removed, and bypass pin is installed. That's all confirmed, and we're ready to push. Roger, stand by. So, beacon, transponder. And finally going to the back of the plane. To the engineer station once again. Packs coming off, and up here everything is set up. Okay, looking good to me. Let's do the before start checklist. So, nose gonna go right. Well, looks like that's the before start checklist complete already, isn't it? Okay, easy going. I can put that one away again. So, ground flight. Go ahead. So, push approved. Nose to the east. Parking brake is released. Roger, start in push, and stand by for engine start. Stand by. And here we go, on the way in our Boeing 727. I just love to say it. Now that's certainly not an airplane I expected to fly at any time, so really happy to see this one. Okay, ground flight, you're clear to start. Okay, starting engine 3. And 2. No FADEC over here, of course. We gotta handle all of that manually. So, oil pressure. And 1. 20%. Fuel on. %, start a cutout. Okay, engine 3 stabilized. And then we have push complete, set brakes. Brake set, starting engine 1. And 2. Oil pressure. N1. Okay, 20%. Fuel is coming on. %, start a cutout, starting engine 2. Okay, they are disconnecting the equipment down here. So we have N2, oil pressure, N1, 20%, fuel on. Right, that's our ramp agent with a clear signal down here. Okay, excellent. So we have 3 good starts, clear disconnect, show me the sun on the left with the pin. Have a wonderful day. Bye now. So, I do believe that's everything we need to do up here. Then let's go over to the engineer. He's got a bit more work to do. So, starting on the electricals then. Essential power generator. Actually, no, we gotta turn that one on down here first. So, Gen 3 selected. Let's go ahead. And we're looking for those lights to stop flashing. Here we are. So, close the relays, essential power number 3. Then down here we can turn the rest of fuel pumps on, creating some more electrical load, which previously we couldn't. Hydraulic system B pump on, and APU off. Okay. After start checklist. Start levers, idle intent, beacon lights. On, engine anti-ice off. And over to the engineer's part. Electrical power check, boost pumps check, B-pumps on. Hydraulic pressure check, lights out. And that's the after start checklist complete. So something that's not written anywhere in the manual, as far as I could see, is that now we better put that pressurization mode into flight, otherwise you are going to be met with a pretty unpleasant warning at 10,000 feet. Okay, lights on, brake out, and off we go. So a little bit of breakaway thrust to get going, and thereafter it should taxi right on its own. And here we go. So if the airplane is very light, then you might have to use a little bit of reverse on engine number 2 because of the high static thrust of the engines. Otherwise the plane can just start to accelerate away from you, and Boeing doesn't seem to have many problems using reverses on the ground here. The airplane is even approved for a power back, so you don't even need a pushback. Well, that kind of says it all, doesn't it? Back in the day, Boeing really didn't have too many problems using reverse thrust during taxi. Nowadays that philosophy has changed, but well, we're flying 1960s style over here, so we are going to follow those procedures. Just noticed the flaps went past the 15 position, so let's put them back to 15. Okay. No traffic as far as I can see. Crossing 25 right. Strobe lights on. And you can see my engines are all in idle and the plane is accelerating here. That's what I meant. You don't have ground speed gauge, by the way. You could of course use the INS for that if you wanted to, but that'd be boring, would it? So the cockpit is located quite a way forward of the main wheels because of the configuration of the plane. Or the main wheels, well, not exactly in the middle of the plane. So for that reason, some oversteering technique needs to be used over here. It's not the smallest of all aircraft, even though it is still narrow body, but max takeoff weight 95 tons. Well, that is quite a bit. Only the A321 gets close, and the 757. Okay, let's review our takeoff briefing. It's going to be left-seat takeoff, runway 25 right, takeoff speeds 130, 130, 145. And the sit straight at 1700 feet, left-turn direct Haldenberg, which is tuned active on the VOR. Now, in case of emergency, we go runway heading 3000, and normal climb is going to be 6000. Now, I don't have anything special over here. We'll leave Haldenberg 130 outbound till 5.1 miles. And that's basically it. Thereafter we go on off. Any questions? No questions. Perfect. In that case, taxi checklist, please. So, flaps and runway. We have 15 green lights, runway 25 right. Takeoff data, EPR and airspeed bugs. That's 2.0 set cross-checked. Stabilizer trim. 5.2 set. Probe heat. On. Flight controls. Let's do them now. The rudder works, we know that, because we've already used it. Okay, scat checked, yaw damper checked, seatbelt and shoulder harness checked. A long straight line. Let's do the engineer's part real quick. Okay, so air conditioning panel. Oh, that's a good point over here. It's now checked. Galley power checked, fuel lead checked, auto pack trip. Normal. And seatbelts and shoulder harness checked. Taxi checklist complete. Okay, reaching 25 right. Approach is clear as far as I can see. Line up. No cabin crew here whom we could tell to prepare for departure, so we are good to go. Few words here on my configuration. I've set my flight engineer so that he handles anything in flight automatically, so we don't need to touch it and we can focus on flying the aircraft. Okay. So, only one thing I notice here is the rudder system A warning, and I figured I can get rid of that by just turning the rudder standby and then back to auto again. That extinguishes the warning. Couldn't find that anywhere in the procedure, but it seems to work. Okay, before takeoff checklist. So, icing considerations checked, cabin alert checked, ignition on. Anti-skid on and checked, strobe lights on, transponder checked, and the engineer's part. So, APU light out, boost pumps, thrust feed valves on and checked, oil cooler checked, before takeoff checklist complete. Alright, ready to go? Takeoff. So, EPR 2.0, slide forward pressure. Thrust set. Checked. Rotate. Gear up. So V2 plus 10 is good, climbing to 1700. I'll slightly delay the acceleration until our turn is complete. That just makes everything a bit easier. So then, direct to Haldenberg. And here it is. Some 14 miles out. Okay, accelerate. Flaps 5. Speed check, flaps 5. Flaps 2. Speed check, flaps 2. And then we can reduce to climb power, 1.82. And flaps up. Speed check, flaps up. Okay, we're past 3000 AGL, so we can accelerate 250 knots. Well, and here we go. So, autopilot on. VOR localizer. Let's go ahead. Oh yeah, come on, photogrammetry. I don't care. So, let's increase that cleared altitude here, going up to 24,000. Reaching 250 knots. Airspeed hold. Okay, let's set climb thrust precisely here. 1.8, roughly. Looking good to me. So, set standard. Standard cross-check flight level 93 now. Checked. Okay, after takeoff checklist. Ignition. Off. Seatbelts and no smoking on. And, well, they do want us to put the lights out now. Then we do. Even though it doesn't make sense to me, but that's what it says over here. Okay, so landing lights off, logo light off, landing gear lever off. And then from the engineer's side, hydraulic pumps, auto and pack trip. Auto pack trip cut out after takeoff checklist complete. So, overflying the VOR now. That's gonna be 130 outbound. And that till 5.1 nautical miles. We are slowly intercepting it, as you can see. No need to rush anything here. And we can start the acceleration. So, vertical speed. Pitch it down a bit, looking for 300 knots. And at 5.1 miles, we'll change over to area navigation. So let's go ahead and prepare this. One more mile. Here we go. So waypoint change. 0 to 1, direct, insert, and auxiliary nav. And now we're navigating on the INS. Reaching 300 knots. EOS hold. And now what we got to do in the climb is to monitor that our climb thrust is indeed appropriate. So for that we once again got to go into the manual here and check that out. So maximum climb thrust over here, we're looking at 15 degrees and we're at much higher altitude. Well, we actually got to go up here and find... Here we go, max climb thrust. So we're between 5 and 25,000, temperature plus 15, so we're looking at these values here. Still 1.81. So you will find that your thrust does vary with altitude. So you've got to be sure to set that and update it as you go along. So here we go, that's 1.8 again, in order not to overboost our engines. Okay, so with that out of the way, we are finally en route to Stuttgart. But we can't just sit back and relax just yet. Always got to keep an eye on our INS. In this case here, especially on the waypoint updating, as you remembered, we didn't put all the waypoints on the ground because of my little error and because I didn't want to waste too much time. Okay, so let's go ahead with insertion of our waypoints. Number 5, Ropoth. And that's gonna be 50133. And 6509. Then we have number 6, MGOT. 50118. East 7197. Ubidu 50044 and 7544.
Crossing 17,500.
Roger. Okay, number 8, Rudus 50029 and East 8047. And finally Nocdi 49520 and East 8288. Alright, and that's all the waypoints we could insert, now inserted. That, let's put it back to distance and time. Over here we can now see 28 miles to waypoint number 2, 4.1 miles, and if I compare that with my flight plan, where I've written down the numbers associated with each waypoint now, then I now know where we are going. Basically like an ordinary flight navigation system. Okay, the temperature is getting a bit colder now, 5 degrees and 19,000 feet. Quick look into the climb chart sheet, and we now have 1.92 as our maximum EPR. You can see that's basically what we have. Now, I would love to update those bugs, but as you can see, when I'm trying to move them in flight, they kind of bug around. So the bug is a bit buggy, as you can see. That's unfortunate, but can't change it. So quick correction to our flight. Obviously we're not cruising at 24,000 but at 23,000 since we are flying eastbound. So let's go ahead and update that over here as well. Cabin altitude controller is correcting for it automatically. So back here everything is working just as it should. Quick word here on something that I did find a bit strange. You can see when you're looking at all those tables you have up here, for example, you also have your takeoff thrust, your go-around thrust, max continuous thrust, maximum climb thrust, and so on. But the numbers you get in here are significantly different from some of the numbers you get in the product manual. So I did ask in their Discord, and they told me to rely on the product manual instead of the ones over here for the moment. So for that reason I'm looking into the manual and not into here, just in case you're wondering. Okay, so in order for the autopilot to level off, we should actually press that altitude select button here so that it arms. And with that we're approaching 1,000 to go. Vertical speed. Let's do 1,000 feet a minute here. Checked. So here we go, 1,000 feet a minute. Cruise speed, well, 300 normally works quite well, but let's just say we wanted to go a bit faster today and make it 330. That's of course flying on the very, very fast side of things, but we want to get to our destination, do we? Okay then, that good stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and continue with our procedures. We're about to reach cruising altitude, and at least for us, there isn't all that much more to do, except to keep our speed under control. But you will see that even without auto throttle, the plane does have an optional one available in case you missed that part on the ground. But even without an auto throttle, it will just maintain its speed pretty nicely with some small thrust adjustments. So overall, very easy airplane to fly. Okay, so the boundary between Belgian and German airspace is the waypoint Eteno, and I've labeled that one as number 3. You can see we're flying to that already, so we're about to enter German airspace. When the INS is in control, then it will set the heading bug over here, but sometimes it seems to, I don't know, be a little strange there, and turn a little bit further than I would actually like it to. So let's say that we are now about to get direct from our traffic controller. And let's say they want us to fly direct to, I know, let's make it Kilo Romeo Hotel. So what we gotta do is to pick an empty spot in our waypoint list over here. So number 2 and 3 are in use, so let's go ahead and go to number 1. And since Kilo Romeo Hotel is a bit too far down the flight plan, we haven't entered that quite yet. But let's go ahead, waypoint 1, and we're going to change this, so 48596. And I'm getting all of this out of the flight plan right now. And the east coordinate for that is 8351. Enter. And now let's say waypoint change 0 to 1. Insert. Now we're flying direct to that very waypoint. 125 miles, 15 minutes to get there. Okay, we're reaching our target speed here, 330. Of course, as I mentioned, that's on the very quick side of things. So let's pull out a little bit of thrust. Something I found a bit strange is, normally in an airplane like this, where it is rather hard to maintain speed accurately because basically the needle has the thickness of 10 knots of airspeed, when you set your speed buck over here, you should have that fast and slow indicator on the left side of the ADI. And basically that little dot in here should be right up here in the middle when we are exactly on the speed buck. And that should give you a bit of an idea there as to what airspeed you are flying precisely. Because over here you can see those markings. The first dot is 5 knots, the lower one is 10 knots. Like that you should be able to fly your speed precisely, despite those speed indicators being a little bit off. But unfortunately this doesn't quite seem to work on my side. If I'm doing something wrong, if it does work, and if it's my mistake, then do let me know in the comments below. I'm certainly not ruling that out. Okay, so the VOR that we're flying to also has a frequency, that's 15.59. Let's go ahead and... sorry, 15.95 of course. Let's go ahead and dial that one in, see if we can receive anything. But looks like we're still out of reception range. But with the INS, it's no problem to fly there directly already. So let's do a little bit of approach planning, shall we? Let's go for the charts, and we don't need the Brussels charts anymore. But we do need Stuttgart, Echo Delta Delta Sierra. So that stuff is loading. Something I found in this airplane is that if you don't use the charts for a little while, and then you get back to them, sometimes they're loading for eternity. The PMDG seems to have a similar issue, so I'm not exactly sure if that's a Navigraph issue or if that comes down to the airplane itself. It might really be both, so I'm not going to blame anyone here. So the ILS approach, well, either runway 07 or 25 can be used. The wind is light and variable at the moment, so nothing for us to worry about. We could literally do both. Today though, let's go ahead and take an ILS approach for runway 25, as that one's going to be easiest to navigate for us. So we'll come in from Lima Bravo Uniform VOR. ILS 25, here it is. Coming in from Lima Bravo Uniform, we'll proceed on the radial outbound till 10.1 and then make our final turn. So a few things for us to take into consideration over here is that we are going to... is that we have those 10 miles, and then we have a little level segment over here. We can very well use that to slow our aircraft down. So for the descent planning, we'll plan to reach that point over here at the platform altitude of 4,000 feet. So 10 miles past Lima Bravo Uniform. Let's go ahead and tune Lima Bravo Uniform 109.2. I'm gonna put that into here, and I will just put the other VOR, the one we're flying to directly now, into number 2, so that we do have something as a conventional backups here. Those INSs, they do have a tendency to drift away, so cross-checking their accuracy with raw data, if we have it available, is always a good thing for us to do. Alright, so with that now taken into consideration, minimum 1,381. So let's dial that one into 381 down here, and that equals 200 feet radio. So we're going to put 200 radio into here as well, so that we do get the MDA light flashing by the time we pass that. Apart from that, 252 on the final approach course. Can't quite set that yet, but we can set 139, which is our outbound from Luburg, and that just so happens to be the course that we've dialed in already, so easy going on that. Right, frequency 109.9. I am going to tune that into the VOR number 1 here already, and we'll also tune it down here, number 2, 109.9. Here we go. The next thing we need then is going to be our approach speeds, and we can grab those once again from the product manual. So let's go right into here again, and if we go all the way down, we can find our approach data over here. So first of all, gross weight, we departed at 155,000 pounds. We're using about 5,000 pounds on the flight, so let's take the data for 150 pounds or 150,000 pounds over here. Flaps 30 approach, 132 is going to be our flaps 30 threshold speed. And if we take a look at the table over here, flap 0 reference is going to be 200, and flaps 560. So that's what we're going to set our speed bugs to. We start with 132, which is basically here. Then 200 knots is going to be our clean speed, and we'll take 160 for the flaps 5 speed. And those are now set as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and plan our descent. We said we wanted to go down to 4,000 feet, 10 miles outbound of Lima Bravo uniform. So the easy mathematics over here is that from Lima Bravo uniform, 10 miles. So let's say 10 miles equals about 3,000 feet. So Lima Bravo uniform, 3,000 feet higher than what we want to have over here. Okay, and if we do that math, then we are in 23,000 now. We need to go down to 4,000. That means we got to lose 19,000 feet. That's 57 miles. Plus some miles to lose our speed, and we're flying pretty fast, so per 10 knots we take an extra nautical mile, so down to 200. We need 13 miles extra, so we're looking at 57 miles plus 13, which is 70 nautical miles. So 70 miles prior to that 10 DME Lima Bravo uniform point is where we want to start our descent. So what I'm doing now to make my life a bit easier is to make myself some handwritten notes on my flight plan, where I'm writing down, okay, 70 NMTD, and then that's going to be 60 miles prior Lima Bravo uniform. And since we have that VOR tuned, we will hopefully get some indication here about it at some point as well. But for now, nothing's coming in. So let's go ahead and also cross-check that data via our INS, which is a bit hard because we are flying to Kilo Romeo Hotel. But what I will do now is to modify the route slightly. We're inbound waypoint 1 at the moment, so I'm gonna change waypoint number 2 to become Lima Bravo uniform. That is of course all stuff that would have to be approved by ATC, but let's just face it, back in the day of the 727, they just had some really easier stuff there, with a lot of VORs and data like that available. So, you know, we are somewhat flying in a world over here that the plane isn't built for. Okay, and on the last one I'm going to insert the airport reference point here. Oh, that's wrong. So on number 3 I'm inserting the airport reference point, and that's it. Okay. Now what I would do in the real world is to take my en route chart and just do a quick measurement to determine where exactly or how much distance there is between Luburg and Karlsruhe VORs. Unfortunately, not working, so gotta live with that. Okay, we start to receive data on VOR2, 56 nautical miles. And that is Karlsruhe I've tuned over here. So 56 miles, or 55 now, versus 48, according to our INS. Now, a small difference is expected because of the slant range error. In other words, the DME measures the direct distance from our airplane to the station in question. However, since we are at an altitude, that distance is necessarily going to become longer than the distance over ground. However, I have a feeling that the error is a bit too great at the moment in this aircraft. Now, of course, the INS position does drift away a little bit as well, but if I cheat and have a look at the Navigraph app, then I can see whether I'm, you know, on track or not. And it seems to me that there is a little error either in the DME or in the INS distance indications. Even though I haven't quite figured out which one yet. Should probably do that, but, well, let's not worry about it too much. Alright, so that's pretty much the part we could do over here. So what I'm going to do just now off screen is to measure that distance between Kilo Romeo Hotel and Lima Bravo Uniform. And that's 30 nautical miles. In other words, 30 miles prior Kilo Romeo Hotel, we need to start our descent. I'm going to do it down here from the INS. So altitude selector, let's put it down to 10,000 at first. We can't really do that checklist yet, so we don't have a checklist to do right now. Perfect. Makes our life easy. So just come back to the engineers panel. Landing elevation 1300 is, yeah, should be 1270. Fair enough. Here we go. 1270. Okay then, let's start our descent. So, altitude select armed, indicated airspeed hold. We'll pull off some of the thrust. Don't climb, you piece of thing. And down we go. That's quite a rate down there. But it should stabilize any moment now. Come on, pitch me up again. Thank you. Vertical speed. Probably the easier way of doing this. So, let's see. Ground speed, 470. So if we're doing about 2,500 feet a minute, we should be good to go. So let's just about do that. 3,000 is gonna work as well. Here we go. Okay, fasten seatbelt's gonna come on. No, not you, you. And they are on anyway, perfect. What did I just press over there? Okay, passenger address speaker, yeah, not a problem. Okay, look at that, now we're receiving Luburg VOR as well, 53 miles. So we wanted to cross that one at about 7,000, so we gotta lose 10 miles here. Plus our distance to slow down, yep, I'd say we are running rather fine on that. Well, let's go ahead and take a small shortcut over here. Fly direct Lima Bravo uniform. That just makes our life a bit easier, doesn't it? I'm gonna go on to navlock over here. And set a direct course to that VOR. Alright, the weather is turning fine. Finally. Well, over there it's pretty rainy, but we've made it out of here. That's very nice. So, small cross-check. We've now 42 miles from the VOR. We gotta descend about 7,000 feet, which is 21 miles, plus 13 to slow down, gives us a 10 miles to spare. So let's just pitch up a little bit more. Don't need to get down too early. I'm gonna do 2,000 feet a minute here. Now the plane does not calculate the time to that station anywhere based on the raw data, but since we have inserted the VOR as number 2, you can say waypoint change 0 to 2 direct. And if we now take a look at the distance and time, it's about 5 minutes to get there. I want to be in 8,000, so that would be, yeah, a bit more than 1,000 feet a minute, but since we still have to slow the aircraft down, I'm just going to keep it running like this. Maybe reduce the rate of descent here to 1,000. Like this. Keep our speed up high for the time it lasts. Of course, again, I do emphasize I am flying the airplane very, very fast over here. Normally I would go to about 300 knots, but no further than that. Just something to keep in mind here. Tracked. Okay, let's put the ILS active on number 2. Now something that's important here. If you are descending fast and you want the airplane to level off somewhere, it will bust that altitude, so you really got to take it smooth. Like here, 1,000 feet a minute or so when approaching the cleared altitude. Now altitude hold has engaged, and you will see it does level off rather abruptly over here. But if you approach the cleared altitude at a decent vertical speed, then you do get a good result as well. So that's now 22 nautical miles. I'd say we can start our deceleration here towards 250 knots. So speed back going down. Thrust levers going down as well, but don't pull them back too far. Otherwise, this happens. So, gotta keep it above that range. Okay, 10,000, lights are coming on, signs are on. Now let's go ahead and... Where's the approach checklist? Here it is. Okay, gotta wait until we're cleared for the... Actually, gotta wait until we're cleared to an altitude before we can do it, since the altimeters are on there. So, speed is coming back, and we took about 5 miles. Yeah, okay. That thing reduces better than I thought. Alright, let's maintain 250, a bit more thrust here, and we'll continue our descent when we are about, let's do some calculations, 10 miles per hour Luburg, then we have 20 to descend. Yep, that should work rather well. So we're gonna remain up here for another 2 miles. So something that I do find worth mentioning here is that I find the airplane to be trimming a lot and lot and lot. Basically, you always hear that trim wheel in action. I'm not sure how accurate that really is. Right, so going out of 5,000. Alt select arms and pull out a bit of thrust. Speed hold. And down we go. Okay, set QNH. Simulator lagging a bit here. QNH 1014 cross-check, passing 9,200 now. Approach checklist, please. Seatbelts and shoulder harness, checked. Seatbelts and no smoking signs, on. Anti-ice, off. Brake pressure, checked. Gear lever, checked. Arrival briefing complete. Altimeters, QNH 1014 set and cross-checked. Landing data, EPR, and airspeed box. So, landing data set, EPR. Yeah, that's a point that's something we didn't do yet. So let's just grab that real quick from the manuals here. So normal go-around thrust, we're at 1,000 and a bit elevation. The temperature is 23 degrees, so we're looking at something about here. So 1.97, 1.99. Okay, reaching the VOR, we're gonna turn on to 139. Okay, that's 139 selected. I'm overshooting a tiny bit over here, my apologies for that. It's just doing too many things with one pilot here. Okay, 1.97. 1.97 and 1.99. Pretty much like this. Alright, so waiting till 10.1 DME. And of course re-intercepting that radial. And here it comes.
Thousand to go.
Checked. Alright, it's gonna be 252 on the final approach. And we turn at 10.1 DME. So just gotta have a close look at that. Descending 4,000. Alright, that's 10.1, so let's go heading 280, intercept that ILS, or actually let's make that heading 210 instead. Come on. A little bit hard to set all of those things at the same time. So, ILS 109.9. For some reason it's setting the course automatically. It pretty surely shouldn't do that. Arriving right on the glide slope up here. Localizer alive, and not the prettiest intercept, unfortunately. Man, quite laggy today. Okay, where is it flying? I don't know. Autopilot off. Okay, let's help it decelerate a little bit. Speed brakes are out. Okay, we are visual. I'm happy to intercept that glide slope. Even though I have to admit this is not a pretty intercept. The localizer just comes in so late in this plane. I'm wondering if the scale is correct. Like on the Embraer it wasn't, so Flaps 2. Speed checked. Look at how quickly the localizer is coming through. That just doesn't seem right to me. So that beeping was because I had the speed brakes out with the localizer, with the flaps. Okay, flaps 5. Speed checked. Come on, airplane. Okay then, gear down. Flaps 15. VRF plus 5 is set. Flaps 20 and flaps 30.
1,000.
Checked. VMC 500 foot gate applies. Okay, landing checklist. Landing gears down, flaps 30. And ignition probably on, I don't know, I don't care. That's what you should have a second pilot for on an approach like this. Okay, let's go visual on the puppy there, because the ILS in Stuttgart is a little bit off, as you can see. I'm showing a dot and a half above the ILS, but on the puppy we're 2 whites, 2 reds, and the puppy definitely is the correct one over here.
300.
Look at that discrepancy there.
200.
Okay, minimum, continue.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Okay, speed brake up. Thrust reverse normal. We'll vacate the runway at the end. That's why I didn't select any auto brake. 80 knots. Manual brakes. Reverser stowed, and that exit here is ours. So as you can see, the approach is pretty busy in this aircraft. And, well, here we are. Welcome to Stuttgart. So, lights going off, transponder on, flaps up, speed brakes up, and trim it back to 0, they say. Pretty much like that. And finally, they do want us to use ground power in this airplane and not the APU after landing. So I suppose that's what we are going to do. Okay, we'll taxi all the way to the end, then to the left, cross the runway again, and the cargo apron is in the south. We have an after landing checklist. Yeah, brake pressure check, flaps up, spoilers down, anti-skid, off, ignition, I think I turned it off earlier already. So ignition off, strobe lights off, radar transponder and DME standby, stabilizer trim 0. And we'll have to do that engineer stuff later on. First of all, runway crossing, that's a bit more important. So strobe lights coming on. And here we go. So we're clear on the left, crossing runway 25. So let's already do a little bit of a verdict on this aircraft. Flight Sim Studios, Boeing 727-200 freighter. Well, first things first, it's much better than their Embraer. This is completely different level from the Embraer. Obviously not bug-free, there's a couple things, as I've shown you, that we came across in here. I also did my own error with the INS alignment and maybe flying a little bit fast onto the final there. But so be it. That's part of the learning experience, and this certainly is quite a bit of a learning experience that you have to go through. I took the entire day yesterday to do 4 flights with it to get myself comfortable with a couple of the flows. You can see at what level I am with the aircraft right now, so that's pretty much what you can expect from it. Now, it is quite a beautiful airplane to fly, and most certainly it is quite a different way to fly from what we are used to in flight simulation. But it's most definitely enjoyable, and it is most definitely one that I am going to fly a little bit more over here if you guys are interested in it. With that out of the way, be sure to leave your feedback, and if you're interested in this kind of aircraft, and also let me know if you have the 727, what you think of it. Most certainly my opinion here is that we are seeing a whole different Flight Sim Studios than we did with the Embraer, and one that is actually delivering with this one. So overall, a pretty good job that they've done on this. Okay, so strobe light coming off. We'll take not that one but the next one, whatever stand that is going to be. Here we go, 203. Alright. So, park and brake set. Then let's go ahead and get them to connect the ground power. So, ground power is connected. External power switch on. Essential power over... I probably waited a bit too long there. Did I? Okay, here we go. Essential power over to the external power. And then off we go. 1. Come on, trim button. You are a bit weird. 1, 2, 3. And here we go. All 3 engines running down. Okay, so essential TR is checked, galley power can go off, engine bleed switches are all open, but the packs are going off, the radio masters are going off. Okay, and then let's go ahead and turn off the battery as well. The plane is going to keep powered on the external power. Okay, secure cockpit checklist. Brakes parked, engine and wing anti-ice off, probe and window heat. Let's see, probe heat is off. Of course I forgot the window heat. That's what we got a checklist for. So, probe window heat off, beacon light. Let's see, engines are all at a standstill. Off, and that's the checklist complete. So thank you very much for flying, everyone. I sure hope that you enjoyed this one. Leave your feedback in the comments below. Flight Sim Studios, Boeing 727-200. Definitely not an airplane I expected to ever fly in the sim, a 727, but a very pleasant one to do once you've mastered it. It does take a little bit of getting into it, but on the positive side here, what I did not show you in this one is that there is an automatic flight engineer available as well, who is going to make your life a lot easier. We'll have a look at him on the next video, so stay tuned for that. And with all of that out of the way, all I can say is thank you very much for watching. I sure hope that you enjoyed this one. Leave your comments below the video. And finally, I would like to thank Flight Sim Studio for providing my review copy of this aircraft. I would like to thank you all for flying along with us. Hope that you have enjoyed it. And with all of that out of the way, thank you very much. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe. And if you're up for more, don't forget to place that subscribe button together with that little bell so that you get notifications when new videos come out. Thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much, and see you all again on the next one.